Like many cyclists, for years we watched riders in the Tour de France scale big mountain climbs and often dreamed what it would be like to ride these ourselves. We've been lucky enough to travel to France on cycling holidays numerous times and ride many famous climbs and others that maybe you've never heard of. Often we've been asked, what are your personal favourites? Which climbs do you think we should definitely do? Well, in no particular order, here's our personal bucket list of top 10 climbs to ride in France. The climb of ColderBois via Col du Salor was actually the first climb we ever rode in France, in the Pyrenees. Wow, what a special treat. First you have the Salor, which keeps your legs nice and honest. Then you reach that first peak. And then probably the most stunning balcony road we've encountered in the Pyrenees. You feel like you're riding on the cliff edge on the Cirque du Mouse. This road leads you to the start of the climb of the Aubisque, where the gradients are never too steep, but the history is all around you, and the 3 big bikes at the summit are something to make sure you take a photo at. Definitely recommended. Mont Ventoux, the Giant of Provence. At 1909 metres in altitude, it may not be the highest climb, but for sure it's one of the most unique, and really, really tough. From Bedouin, 21.4 kilometres and 7.6% average gradient. But for me, it's those final 6 kilometres that really stand out. You break out at Chalet Renard, that rocky, barren moonscape all around you. You can see that iconic red and white striped tower off in the distance, leading you to the summit. Wow, something to just really breathe in and just enjoy the feeling of riding on such a historic place. The Col de Tourmalet, arguably one of the most famous climbs in the Pyrenees, having featured in the Tour de France 87 times since it was first included, all the way back in 1910. When we rode this climb, one thing that you really felt the whole time was just the sense of history that was around you. There's often paint still on the road from fans watching the Tour de France of previous editions, and looking up around you as you hit those steep gradients, you can see the summit in sight. The legs will hurt, the gradients get up to 10%, the climb is, very steep, 18.6 kilometres, 7.5% average, but just keep pushing and enjoy the scenery all around you. The climb of Alpe d'Huez in the French Alps really belongs on every cycling fan's bucket list. It may not have the most epic of views or the steepest of gradients, but I think it's probably got the most richest history, especially those 21 hairpin bends that will lead you all the way to the top. You're never alone in the cycling season here. There's thousands of cyclists who come here to pit themselves to see if they can reach the top, maybe break the hour. Each of those hairpin bends has the stage winner's name written to it, and it's just one of those icons. You really feel the history all around you. The Col d'Aspen in the Pyrenees is a true gem and one which we both really recommend you try and ride. 12 kilometres to the top from the town of Aru, and at 6.5% average gradient, it's actually not too bad, especially those lower slopes, which are a nice and gentle start before you get to the steeper pitches near the top. What makes this climb beautiful are those magnificent views. As you climb up from the valley, you look over beautiful lush pasture meadows and then these massive mountains all around you. You really get a sense of being in the Pyrenees, and it's just a stunning climb. Add it to your list, we highly recommend it. The climb of Cirque du Mouse in the Pyrenees. Wow, what a hidden gem. It's never featured in the Tour de France due to where it is in the national park, but what the Tour de France lacks, you get to benefit from. It's just stunning. You're on such a tiny little road. You've got hairpins, you've got steep gradients, big mountain peaks, and at the very top you finish in this amazing sort of natural amphitheatre with views all around you to the stunning Cirque. Sometimes it's the least known climbs which are the best. This is one of my absolute personal favourites, and I highly recommend you put it on the bucket list. The Col de Gallivia in the French Alps is actually the 8th highest paved road in the Alps, and wow, what a climb. To just get to the base of it, you actually need to do another climb in itself. We rode it via the ColderBois approach, which meant that our legs were fairly tired by the time we got to the very base. It was only 8.5 kilometres then to the top to reach the summit of the Gallivia, but with those maximum gradients of 12.1% kicking in that final kilometre, you really feel you achieved something to reach that height of 2,642 metres. There's giant peaks all around you. You start off in meadows and end up in such a rocky landscape. Wow, definitely an icon to take on. At 2,208 metres in elevation, the climb of ColderBois is one of the highest that you'll get to in the Pyrenees. Wow, what a climb! From the UNESCO village of Gallivia, the climb is 10 kilometres in length, the average gradient is 8%, and yes, it is a real challenge. Often you've got double-digit gradients into a headwind, and you may be, really questioning life at some points. But the road gets narrow, there's sheep that are always there, just sort of hanging onto the edges of rocks, and it's just such a stunning place in the Pyrenees to be. The summit of the climb ends right up close to the border with Spain, and yeah, 10 out of 10, we definitely recommend this for your bucket list. When we first started planning our cycling holiday to France, I vividly remember seeing a photo of the climb to Luzide Den and thinking, oh my goodness, I need to ride this climb. Those hairpin bends, that iconic view that you only get from the summit, just wow. It's actually got 31 hairpin bends, which is 10 more than the famous Alpe d'Huez in the French Alps. But this gem in the Pyrenees is just an absolute must and probably one of my favourites. 13.5 kilometres to reach the summit at 1,720 metres of elevation. 7.7% average gradient too, and you'll really feel it, especially in the summer heat. But bend after bend and that view at the top, yes, it's definitely one for your bucket list. The climb of the Route de l'Axe in the Pyrenees is one which we definitely think needs to belong right up at the top of your cycling bucket list. The Tour de France isn't able to get permits to ride in this area of the national park, but wow, what a place to be and what a way to experience it on a bike. You'll see 4 lakes in this ride, hit a summit height of 2,092 metres. There's small tiny roads, waterfalls, beautiful forests, mountain streams, and of course tiny hairpin bends. With steep gradients up to 15% in places, you'll definitely need to pack your climbing legs, but this is a ride that you will do and remember for the rest of your life. Definitely one for the bucket list. So there you have it, our personal top 10 cycling bucket list climbs to ride in France. How many of these climbs have you ridden? Are there any climbs we left off the list that you think we should ride? Comment below and let us know. And if you want to know any more details about all these climbs, we've linked to all our individual ride guides in the description below. You can find all this information and more on our website, seektravelride.com. Until next time, happy pedaling.